This is one of my very first builds that I made back in Season of the Wish, and I love this. It is a Nezarec Sin Strand Warlock build, and it's just as good now as it was before, and then there's a Prismatic version that I want to like, but I'm undecided on. On to the biggest part of this build, and that is Buried Bloodline, which has Violent Reanimation. Multiple final blows of this weapon grant Devour to the wielder, which is incredibly powerful to give you free heals on Strand. The Catalyst allows you to weaken enemies on hit while you have Devour. That is basically the core of this build, and that is purely because of Nezarec Sin. And Nezarec Sin is defeating enemies with Void, regenerates abilities more quickly. Let's go ahead and look at the Strand subclass. So you can't change your melee, your jump, or your healing rift. I think those are all preference things. Shackle Grenade is what we're using, and we're using that with Mind Spun Invocation, which basically grants you suspend on final blows once you consume your Shackle Grenade. And then we have the Wanderer, which is tangles you throw to targets detonate in a suspending burst, and destroying a tangle creates suspending afterwards. The easiest way for us to create a tangle is with Thread of Wisdom. Defeating suspended targets creates a Orb of Power. When you pick up an Orb of Power, you are granted Woven Mail with Thread of Warding. While Woven Mail is active, final blows create a tangle with Thread of Transmutation. And then we're using Thread of Continuity, which just extends our suspend duration. Promemoria is a weapon that I really wanted to be good with this because it had Dragonfly in the final column. It also has access to Demolitionist, and if this were a void weapon, it would be absolutely insane. The only thing that has a combination similar to this, the Vault of Glass Machine Gun, Corrective Measures, which has Demolitionist and Firefly. So for this build, as you can see, I'm using Commemoration, just because it has Killing Tally, and that's constantly refreshed with Reconstruction. But remember, Buried Bloodline is the main part of this build, so your LMG is not required. You can use another weapon if you choose. For the kinetic slot, I'm using Tusk of the Boar with Slice. That way you can sever enemies, which works out really great with the Strand subclass, especially whenever I have Thread of Continuity on, which is going to extend our sever duration. Before we go over Prismatic, let's talk about mods. So for our helmet, we're going a Siphon mod that matches our weapons, and of course we're using Void weapons because we have Nezarec Sin, and then I went with a special ammo finder because I am using Buried Bloodline more than I'm using Commemoration, but you can use a heavy ammo finder or whatever you like in this place. For our gauntlets, you can go 3 impact inductions, or 2 impact inductions and a fastball if you want to be able to throw your suspend grenades further. And Impact Induction is just going to allow you to get your grenade back faster anytime you get a powered melee hit. For the chest piece, I just have on reserves for Buried Bloodline, but I definitely recommend whatever kind of resistance you're going to be facing. For your boots, I'm going to recommend Innervation, which is basically whenever you pick up a Orb of Power, it reduces your grenade cooldown. You can use that times 2. I also run Insulation, which reduces your class ability each time you pick up an orb, and then Better Already, which is anytime you pick up an orb, you immediately start regenerating health. And the reason that I have on Insulation is because whenever I pick up an Orb of Power, it grants class ability. Because on my class item, I have Bomber, which reduces my grenade cooldown whenever I use my class ability, so it's a bit of a cycle there. Now we're going to look at some Prismatic Nezarec Sin gameplay, but before we do, did you know that 99% of you aren't subscribed? If you aren't subscribed and you're enjoying the video, be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment down below what you think about the build, but let's go ahead and continue with the build. So for Prismatic, this isn't as much as a suspend build as it is just spam as much as you can build, and while I do enjoy this build, I do not think it is as good as the Strand version. That is why I'm putting this at the later half of the video. So first off, we're going to be looking at some of the mods that I changed around. You might have saw it in the picture. I had Firepower equipped. Firepower is really good. I had Fastball equipped. Fastball is really good because we're using pulse grenades, an actual good grenade. And instead of impact induction, you can change that to something else. You can go double Firepower. Whatever works best for you. It's kind of up in the air on how you want to do this because there is no one way to do it because this isn't all about melee or all about grenade. You build into it how you want to. First off, let's look at the subclass, see what we changed. So, Song of Flame. Song of Flame is going to give you and nearby allies faster regen to your abilities. You're going to become more resistant to incoming damage, and your solar and kinetic weapons Scorch. So, unfortunately, we will not be taking big use of that part because we don't have solar weapons. You can put a kinetic weapon on if you would like, but I'm personally not going to. For our class ability, we went Phoenix Dive, which we'll go over why I did in a second. Penumbral Blast as the melee, you can change that to Arcane Needle if you would like, and then finally Storm Grenades. We went with Bleak Watcher and Hellion, and the reason that I went Phoenix Dive is because we have Hellion, so I can get my Hellion as fast as possible, because while this thing isn't the most overpowered thing, whenever you're shooting stuff with Buried Bloodline, even in low-end content, you have like knights and stuff that don't quite get one-shot, Hellion will finish them off, and then whenever you're in higher in-game content, Hellion on top of your Buried Bloodline definitely helps you get the damage that you need to be able to kill enemies as fast as possible. For our fragments, we went with Facet of Dominance, which is your Void Grenades weaken and your Arc Grenades jolt. So we did use a Storm Grenade, so our Storm Grenade will be able to jolt targets. We also have Facet of Dawn. Anytime we get a melee hit or a powered melee kill, we're going to be granted Radiant. That is why I would recommend Arcane Needle, so you can have Radiant on demand more easily, but Penumbral Blast is really good, and also you get your cooldown done really quick, so it's not really much of a problem. We also have Facet of Bravery, which is anytime you get a grenade kill, you're going to get volatile rounds. So anytime you kill something or hit something with a storm grenade, it is going to jolt those targets, and then when you get a kill with that grenade, it will then grant you volatile round, which is incredibly helpful. So all of that plus Hellion hitting the enemies is a shit ton of damage, because you're going to be scorching them and then they're going to be volatile or jolted. I have Facet of Balance on because I am using a Strand Grenade Launcher and Buried Bloodline. So Buried Bloodline will be giving me my melee energy back faster, and then whenever I am using Tusk of the Boar, I'll be getting my grenade energy back faster. But since this is a Nezarec Sim build, I'm going to be getting my energy back faster, so this one you can swap out if you want. Next up, we have Facet of Hope, which is while we have an elemental debuff, our class ability regenerates more quickly. So anytime we have Devour from our Buried Bloodline, or anytime we have Radiant from our melee, we will be able to get our class ability back faster, which is really good considering the fact that Hellion is so powerful. And with Phoenix Dive, every time we dive, we're going to get Cure. That's also counted as an elemental buff, so it'll recharge it faster right off the get-go. And finally, Facet of Ruin, which makes that our Stasis Shatters and our Solar Ignitions have a larger effect. So our Super Song of Flame, bigger ignitions, and then our Penumbral Blast has a bigger shatter. This build is pretty good. It feels like a Master of None build, which is the only reason I prefer the Strand version, but if you definitely want a Prismatic build, I definitely recommend you try this, and be on the lookout for that corrective measure with Demo Firefly. That's it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Like, comment, sub. Later.